Hi, I'm Drew Hutchison. You're tuned to Local Bias. My guest today is frequent contributor Karl Meyer. He's an environmental journalist who's been covering what's going on at the Connecticut River and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the relicensing of the Northfield Mountain Pump Storage Facility, which is offline. Karl, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
It's down. It's been down.
It's been down in this crazy...
Everyone must be freaking out. Is the sky falling? Have we lost all our electricity because it's been down?
Thank you for the question. You know, Northfield went offline like the last day of summer. And it stayed offline right through Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I'm not sure if it's still offline because I haven't walked up there. But the thing is, when Northfield goes offline, everybody swears it's so critical or whatever. This is a machine that wastes 34% of its energy just sucking the river backwards, right, into reverse, against the Clean Water Act and everything else, killing every little fish, big fish, aquatic animal, eggs, larvae that get sucked in, totaling hundreds of millions actually yearly. We don't know if it's in the billions because we've only studied a couple of fish. There are 26 species of fish that live here. So Northfield may yet be offline. Did anybody notice? First Light? Where's the big announcement? Now let me just give you a quickie. We're in our 12th year. I'm a stakeholder. I'm a stakeholder. I'm an intervener. I'm requesting that.
Aren't we all stakeholders, though, that live by the river?
But I'm a stakeholder
but you're also
in the fact that I'm in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Right.
I've been on the Fish and Aquatic Studies team since 2012, since this thing started. I've contributed dozens of comments and study comments and contributed to the studies and interventions. And all of a sudden, we're at year 12, right? This is supposed to be a 5-year FERC process. Mm-hmm. We started in 2012. They said, First Light said, we're going to start early. We want to get this wrapped up by 2018.
So they're still playing by the old contract, which actually was ill-conceived.
It sure was. It basically starves the river and leaves virtually miles of the Connecticut River. Let's get the old chart out, Drew. This is what First Light's FERC contributions had to shows about the Connecticut River. I brought my little prop, Drew, wooden spoon. Did you ever get whacked with this as a kid?
My mom used a switch belt.
Well, there you go. So the Connecticut River gets hammered by Northfield
Mom,
Mountain.
I love you.
Okay.
I had a great childhood.
So this is the Connecticut River, and let's say Northfield is actually up here, but this is the Connecticut River.
But it kind of wraps around.
This is the sea, the Atlantic Ocean. The Long Island Sound would be down here.
Okay.
Turners Falls Dam would be right here. This is the Connecticut River with Northfield pumping at 15,000 cubic feet per second. I think and the river's run is about 4,900 CFS. It is running backward, right? This is Franklin County High. The airport is somewhere over here. This is the river going backward for miles.
Yeah, that's the tech school.
And miles, and then they have to hook these up over here. You get over here. This is the French King Bridge. We're going to make that big turn there. This is the French King Rock. Northfield is up here. PSP Investments that actually owns First Light, $250 billion corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Ottawa,
right.
They're from Ottawa, Singapore, I think Seattle, London.
Well, the shareholders must be really upset that they're not making more profit right now.
Well, especially right now, and this is we are getting to the absolute sort of last time for some lawyer to come in and say, you can't do this to the river. I mean, when your rivers run in reverse, it's a recipe for a dead planet. That's the bottom line here, right?
Well, it's basically, it seems criminal what they've done for all these years. But what seems even more criminal is that the stewards of the river have abrogated their responsibility. I mean, is it regulatory capture? Is it because they get a few donations for their source-to-sea cleanup, or they get funded for their fisheries study or something? I mean, why don't the people who actually know what's going on, say anything?
You get points for using the word abrogate. First of all, Drew. All right. They say U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service,
right.
National Marine Fisheries, Mass Division of Fish and Wildlife Service was in this process, signed First Light, PSP investments, non-disclosure agreements, right? They've been in the whole 12 years. Last St. Patrick's Day, I'm calling it the St. Patrick's Day Massacre, they did this absolutely abhorrent thing. They signed off on a river that for the next 50 years, if this goes through FERC, will continue to run backwards, will continue to kill everything that goes up there, aside from a little flimsy net that never worked when he had salmon. And that was what they signed off on. They basically threw in the towel, and to me, they're just sort of...
They're complicit in this degradation of our environment.
Absolutely. And this is where we're at. You know, I've said this so many times to you, Drew. Where is the lawyer that's going to come out of the woodwork and say, no, this is absolutely cannot stand. You cannot license this plant under Clean Water Act, even Massachusetts Clean Water Standards, if it kills the physical, chemical, and biological life of this river. And this is a 20-mile reach of river. Northfield controls about 50 miles of the river, right, between suck and flow. It impacts all the way down to Northampton, Massachusetts, but it starts at the Vernon Dam.
Right.
So this affects Windham County, Cheshire County in New Hampshire, Windham in Vermont, and all of Franklin County. We have the serial killer of the Connecticut River right here, right where the Connecticut River Conservancy.
Well, couldn't there be a class action lawsuit even? Because aren't we all people that are supposed to benefit from the river that runs through our backyard?
What you need, Drew, is people to start showing up. You need an organization, which this river has never had, that says, this shall not stand. We're going to court, right?
Right.
And at this point, I think it's just going to take some individual lawyer to come out. They could back my intervention. You know, I'm an intervener, licensed intervener. FERC has accepted my
expertise.
Intervention. Wait, I've you know, not bragging, but I probably sort of, as a generalist, I probably know as much about this river in 2 counties, 3 counties as anybody else,
right.
just generally. The horror show of this is, as you said, regulatory capture. There's a couple of bits of news that I want to tell you.
Okay.
First of all, I was at a Connecticut River. There's a new thing. It was the Connecticut River Atlantic Salmon Commission. There haven't been any salmon on the river for a decade now or whatever, but they were still in business. They've turned into the Connecticut River Migratory Fisheries something. They sort of morphed, right? And
right.
You know, it's a bureaucracy that sort of continues its own bureaucracy. But the same failed government organizations that signed what I'm thinking is a 50-year death warrant for this ecosystem have been at work. And I was at the meeting a week and a half ago. Melissa Grader, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, says that Great River Hydro, upstream, right? They're owned by Hydro-Quebec. About 300 plus miles of this river is now controlled by Canadian government organizations. PSP Investments is literally, that giant, global giant, is literally an arm of the Canadian government. So this is not even our river. Let's rename it the Canadian River. Melissa says that Great River Hydro had some questions about the agreement in principle. There's a comprehensive agreement out there that's heading to FERC. Those questions should be into FERC by the end of this month. We're talking in January. So it could take as little as 2 weeks or till the end of February. It's hard to know what FERC's going to do. But then this thing goes out to something called Ready for Environmental Analysis. And that's sort of the last time for the public to sort of make their will known about what's been proposed here, which is absolutely miserable, right? You know, it's like I said, these agencies, and who else? American Rivers, the Nature Conservancy signed off on this stuff.
Oh my God.
The Watershed Council pulled out at the last minute, which was interesting. I think this has saved some face under Andy Fisk, but then Andy Fisk turned around and a year later, he's working for American Rivers, who signed the agreement, right? So
well, and actually that's the revolving door between people who work for the government that then go into private industry. They know they have a better paying job waiting for them if they do the bidding of these big companies.
Can we get into this just a little bit?
Go ahead, it's your...
And this is Mitch Bate and Joan Marie Jackson actually forwarded this to me just a couple of days ago. This is from the Boston Globe. John Chesto writes a column in there. This is from January 23rd. And Alicia Barton, nobody knows this, but on November 17th, Alicia Barton sort of took off. She was only at First Light for 3 years, right?
Okay.
She goes back to the Patrick administration, sort of advocating for use of the Connecticut River as a spigot for energy that's going to go out to energy gluttonous coastal cities. It can be sent to New Jersey, Maryland, New York State. It can be sent even across the border back up to Canada, right? So Alicia Barton came through something called the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, ultimately.
Sounds nice.
Came to First Light. And then here's John Chestow's Globe column from the 23rd. First Light's pipeline from Mass Clean Energy Center. First Light Power, the Burlington Energy Company, sure seems to attract Massachusetts Clean Energy Center executives. Now I'm starting to get a whiff of, collusion here, insiderness. The company just hired Jen Delosia, I don't know how to spell that right, who ran the quasi-public, right? And I always worry about quasi-public, Mass CEC until last fall to be Senior Vice President of Corporate Operations. First Light Chief Executive Justin Trudell said Dealosio will take over some responsibilities that had been handled by Alicia Barton. Gone, right? She's gone. Now she's working for another global Copenhagen Wind Partners, I believe it's called. So she just took off for another global corporation. Alicia Barton, Trudell's predecessor, Barton, another former Mass CEC chief executive, recently left First Light to take a top job at, this is talking about her, at Vineyard Offshore, right? Okay. A third former Mass CEC chief, Stephen Pike, is First Light's general counsel. My God, how chummy this all is.
Well, I mean, people network and they hire who they know and they know who they worked with. So, I mean, there's a certain natural inclination for that.
Oh, of course. But these are people that are now working for a global Canadian government arm of the Canadian government. So Andy Bridges heads up First Light's community relations. And it's all just a little squishy, don't you think, Drew? It's sort of like, and what they have their eyes on, right? And he describes, he describes First Light as a hydro company, which is kind of interesting because Northfield Mountain, their big cash cow, right? The thing that they want to use and have been making hundreds of millions of dollars off of since they came here. They only came here 8 years ago, right? They just showed up and bought the thing up. That's their big cash cow. It runs off the grids mostly. 59% of the grid is running today on climate scorching natural gas. Another 20-something% is nuclear coming from Seabrook, and then there's a little mix in there, and some of it's actually coming down from Canada Hydro, right? But it's basically a gas plant. So First Light, what they've been doing, right? Northfield Mountain, First Light only had to report 1 year of their revenue from Northfield in this FERC licensing. It was about just shy of $160,000. The only thing they're offering to spend across 50 years for infrastructure, for the damage and starving a river, is less than 1 year's revenue from Northfield. In the meantime, in these last 8 years, they have been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on offshore leases in New York and New Jersey. They've been sort of bullying their way in and gobbling up hydro companies in places as far away as Western Pennsylvania, Ontario, Quebec. Right? They just come in.
Well, they know how to run these companies. I mean, that's their area of expertise.
Hydro, but it serves their label, right? Because they want to be called a clean energy company. Right. Their biggest dinosaur right here is not clean. It is not carbon free. It eats everything in the Connecticut River. It's hard to know what to say,
or who to say it to, because basically it's fallen on deaf ears. Time and again, these issues get raised, and our local politicians and our local regulatory agencies turn away.
And which brings me back to something we were talking about earlier before we went on. We're getting to the point where it's the 50th year anniversary of Sam Lovejoy.
And the
toppling Northeast Utilities little wind tower, because they were going to put up 2 nuclear plants
on the Montague
Connecticut
Plains.
River and the Montague Plains, right?
I had Sam on the show years ago.
There you go.
About 20 years ago, in fact, I had him on the show.
And that stopped more ruination. The Connecticut River would just be, would just be dead at this point, right? So that stopped that. And then the 80s, right? There was another push
To divert the Connecticut River.
Divert the Connecticut River.
Because of the
Meanwhile,
drought.
Northfield got built, right? And there was this big Quabbin valve, and all of a sudden, again, Massachusetts, the bureaucracy in Metro Boston. We're running out of water. They had leaky pipes, leaky everything all over the
Right.
place. They were going to take, and there's still a valve up there.
To divert.
Up in north, to divert that water. And the people from Connecticut and Massachusetts and some from Vermont and New Hampshire said, you can't do this to the Connecticut River. But meanwhile, right, Vernon got built. People sort of turned their eyes to there. Seabrook sort of happened. But everybody forgot about looking at the Connecticut River, which is virtually empty in front of Turner's Falls Dam most of the time. And that 20-mile pool right up to Vernon is just strangled. It is strangled. It is a feeding frenzy for Northfield Mountain's net loss. 34% of that grid energy is used just to suck the water.
I mean, if you had an oil burner that wasted 34% energy, people would say that you're nuts.
You're out of your mind. Right. And then this energy gets sold at peak prices, right? And here we are. I don't know for sure whether Northfield is on today. I'm sort of guessing it's still offline.
Right.
Not doing the damn thing, right? Because they had all sorts of problems. They had rocks were falling inside the powerhouse. They had rubble in front of some of the intakes. They had to scoop out some stuff from the dam. It is just the wrong thing for our river, but nobody has, where is the public on this? I'm sorry to say, what happened to activists? There's been a few, there's been a few raising their voices. And I just want to get you back to one person that sort of is a little corroborating bit of evidence here. I put in a fairly extensive, I think it's 7 or 8 pages of my notice to intervene.
Right.
And so you can read that online. And I'm going to ask Drew to put
Post a link so people can look for
so
it.
you can link up to it.
Yeah.
But only one person, right? I know all these people across 25 years writing about the river. I know all these biologists and bureaucrats from the agencies and from the NGOs. We've been sitting at the table, negotiating table. We've been doing this and that. Fish and Aquatic Study Team. They all were they seemed to be, talk about corporate capture. I guess policy keeps them from actually speaking out about the degradation that Northfield capture. I mean,
because they have to be aware of it.
They are, Drew. I mean,
So,
I know them well enough. So nobody did, save one, all right? And I want this to be linked, and you're going to be able to find this. But Alex Harrow lives in Greenfield,
Yep.
used to be on the CONSCOM here. 30 years, fisheries experience, federal fisheries experience at the Silvio Conti Anadromous Fish Lab right here in Turner's Falls.
right by the rock dam.
Studied salmon, sturgeon, shad, right? American eels, right? Knows all about this stuff, right? 30 years Dr. Harrow has been working there. And he is the only person that took advantage of their democratic right to put in their personal comments.
Right.
These are my personal formal comments about the agreement in principle that was signed that's going to keep the river running backwards and eating everything, about the net that never worked at salmon time. So let me just read a few of these things, and these are in the Fed documents, by the way. Alex Harrow, Greenfield, Mass. The following are my formal comments to FERC regarding flows and fish passage agreement. Blah blah blah. And he just generally goes, the AEP represents a general agreement between First Light and regulatory agencies and stakeholders for future licensing and operation of fish passage facilities and flow operations. And then the following are my specific comments, all right? And thank you, Alex, because they're an expert person just sort of going at it, right? Intake protection at the Northfield Mountain Pub Storage Project. The AEP proposes the use of a seasonal in-river barrier net to exclude some fishes, larger juvenile shad, adult eels. That's 2 species out of 2 dozen, right?
Okay.
From entrainment, which means sucking up and killing, right, into NPS. Based on past attempts to use a barrier net at this site, And this is for smolt protection of salmon in the 1990s. This proposed mitigation has a high probability of failure and ineffectiveness due to likely flow and debris events that will likely destroy or compromise the net in the fall months. No net or other protection is proposed in the spring months to protect upstream migrants. They actually added a month or two extra, but it's only for these two migrants, right? The 3/8 to 3/4 inch mesh will do nothing to prevent entrainment of smaller juvenile shad, herring, larvae fishes, or other small planktonic organisms. First Night acknowledges this and proposes a fund to be used for habitat improvement projects. So they're fund for 50 years of killing all these fish and virtually hundreds of millions annually. Mm-hmm. It's around $100,000. You make $159,000 in 1 year at Northfield. Spend it all. The other thing.
It's like robbing somebody and giving them a lollipop and feeling good about it.
The other thing that Northfield First Light spent $100 million on, $97.5 million on recently. They opened their own bank. They opened their own lending bank.
Right.
But they have $100,000 over 50 years to do for this, right?
Oh my God, that's obscene.
Okay. In my view and experience, mitigation by monetary compensation is archaic, subjective, and usually ineffective. And the environment impacts of such losses created by Northfield Mountain go far beyond just loss of fish resources.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Can we do one more?
Yeah. One more. We're running out of time.
Sorry,
but
hang in there with me. Number 2. No alternative measures to mitigate for entrainment at Northfield are proposed. This project has here near 100% entrainment mortality for larval and juvenile fishes of all species and probably similar negative impacts for other planktonic organisms.
100%.
River flow reversals in low flow months and significant daily variation in level of bank wetted margins are also environmentally detrimental. Finer mesh screening or minor reduction in withdrawals will probably not reduce the level of impacts appreciably. Pump storage projects on river systems are usually far more destructive to aquatic life than in other environments. Northfield Mountain pump storage was probably a bad idea to begin with. I would therefore encourage FERC to consider modification of Northfield Mountain, NMPS, as a closed system with the addition of a lower reservoir, right? You could build the lower reservoir, but this won't happen.
Oh, they could actually...
It would cost billions of dollars, Drew. Okay,
but
so
that actually would...
That would do it, right? But it would not happen. It would not happen. It would cost billions and billions of dollars, right?
Think of the shareholders.
Okay, system with the addition of a lower reservoir with no or little connection to the Connecticut River. If this alternative proves infeasible, then other means of energy storage for the region ought to be considered.
Right?
Basically, we're on the same page, and Drew's going to have this stuff at the end of this.
So it'll be on the YouTube. Of course, we're shown on GCTV. That's the cable access station that carries us, and where we are recorded. I have my own YouTube channel. It's Local Bias. So when I upload it, it's very easy for me to put the links in the comments section or in the whatever section. It's harder to do on TV. I mean, you watch it, but you don't link to it. So.
Yes. And one last thing.
Yes.
Here you go. Coming up, there's still time for the public to sort of dive in. There's still time for a lawyer that really cares about their kids or grandkids to jump in and say, okay, this shall not stand. We're taking the Clean Water Act and First Light and FERC and whoever else to court. But here's the way you do it. They're going to be calling out. The Watershed Council wants to. They want to be doing a little bargaining for erosion. Right? They're playing for a pittance, but you're going to hear a lot about. They're going to try to make a lot of noise. But if you're not talking about a river run in reverse and everything that dies going up there, you're not a river protection agency or NGO.
Right. If it's okay for the river to be destroyed like this, then somehow you're.
That's absolutely it. But but the word will be on the street that there's still time to sort of make some comments. So if you want to make some comments, here's a pretty easy way. Just go to FERC.gov, right? You look at the right side of the page where that brings you, and you'll see something that says e-file and comment. I want to use my little spoon here. then you go to the next page will come up. Look at the left side and look down that column on the left side and click on e-comment right there. That'll save you a lot of time. And ultimately, they're going to want to know what you're talking about. So you need to tell them you're talking about capital P 2485. Okay, Northfield Mountain, And then tell them what you think about a river run in reverse, and tell them you believe in the Clean Water Act, and that you cannot possibly license a plant that's owned by
So
Canada
anyone that
States
lives
under
in
the
this
Clean Water Act.
region can...
Anybody can comment.
Anyone can comment.
Anybody can comment. Make them as pointed as possible.
This might be the last chance.
This is one of the last chances, Drew. Like I said, I keep, where's my little spoon? I keep praying for that, Is there not one lawyer, some warhorse, a new hotshot kid that wants to come out and say, no, we're not leaving this for 3 generations? They're giving out money to, people like Nolan Beaker Project and the Franklin County. They give out these little, so
Grants and
everybody
stuff.
shuts up.
Right.
Nobody talks about it. But, you want to talk about 7 generations. Well, this is, how many is 100 years? How many
Right.
generations is that? We've already lost 5 to a dead river.
Right.
So, anything
Carl,
else?
no,
Drew,
Carl,
are we
I
good?
think you it's funny. I come into work, and there's a little note from you: "River in peril." It's like, oh, I got to call Carl.
Love the drama. I was like, okay. Can I get with Drew? Just let's have it out here.
So, I mean, the fact is that the community, this is our river, the community does have a voice, but we don't always have a voice. So if people want to say that they have a chance to say something, you presented with them how they can say something. And that really is very empowering, and I appreciate you coming on and letting people know how to do that.
One last thing.
Sure.
People used to know, and to your credit, you've been the person that has gotten out the information in depth for throughout this, right? There's a desert of what's not being talked about out there. But people that acted in the 70s and 80s, they need to remember what they can do. Raise your voices. Figure out a way to do something. Make your voice heard. We have tons of creative people here, Drew. We got a few months. Do something. Take some action. Write. Yell. Stand.
Well, and that's the thing, is that we live in a culture where a lot of times we're trained to kind of be victims. It's like, oh, well, the government's doing that to us, or a big business is doing that to us. Well, don't give away your power. We have the power to actually, I'm going to comment. I've sent them a letter before, but I have a chance to send them another letter.
Do.
Please, I hope that people join me and write letters and let the Regulatory Commission know that we don't approve of something that's so absurd and it causes so much harm. It would be wrong of us not to take action.
Remind them what the Clean Water Act says, and I have to say, Alex Harrow doesn't know that I pulled it. It's been sitting there for a long time, but I mean, it was his right to do this, and it's the only sort of professional stuff that's in there that sort of speaks to the real stuff. And there are dozens of employees out there.
They know what's going on, and they're keeping their mouths shut.
Yeah.
What does that say about human nature?
I don't know, Drew, but here we are. We're doing what we can, and there's more to be done.
There's always more to be done.
I'll be back. I'm
But
sure I will
that's
be.
right. And so thank you for coming on. I really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
It's
You know,
always
you
fun.
can call me anytime. And you've been tuned to Local Bias. I'm Drew Hutchison. My guest has been Karl Meyer. I hope that this has been illuminating for our audience and that they feel empowered to actually make a difference in our community. Thank you for joining us. Take care.